hope you're ready to learn about some foosball today, aka football. We're going to teach you everything there is to know so that you're ready for the big game and you're enjoying the playoffs that are going to be on TVs everywhere across the nation. I'm your girl Tammy, aka the Canna Cutie, and I'm your host and your guide to get you ready. So let's begin. Now, before we get into learning a brief history about football today, and it all begins in the late 1800s, it was a game between Yale and Harvard. It was a very dangerous game, but that game is the roots of where we are today with the NFL. Now, the NFL is comprised of two conferences in football, and once upon a time, these two conferences were two different leagues. That's actually kind of a theme with a lot of professional sports is you'll have a competing league that'll start and then the other league will eventually buy it. It happened in the NBA, happened in the NFL, but that's the basis of what it is today. 32 teams divided into two conferences, the American Conference and the National Conference, AFC and the NFC, and that's where our journey will begin. So let's start with the league. We have 32 teams in the NFL, and again, divided in the two conferences, the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference. Of those 16 teams in one conference, we divide all of those teams into four different divisions. The AFC North, South, East, and West, and the NFC North, South, East, and West. It's just not realistic for every team to play each other. And that's why the divisions matter. We'll get into that in a second. So let's recap. You have the NFL of 32 teams, which is divided into two conferences of 16 teams each and four divisions in each conference with four teams in each division, totaling 32 teams. One important thing to note is that you're going to play the team in your division twice every season, and those are your rivals. It's why the Cowboys and the Eagles hate each other so much. They're in the same division, and this season they're both really good, and they had to play each other twice so that both opponents get an opportunity at home. So how the schedules work is you know that 6 of your games are going to be against your division opponents. You still have 9 more games to account for. And the NFL does a really good job of matching up divisions against one another. Maybe one year the AFC West will play the NFC South so that all those opponents can play against one another. And each year they make sure that it's rotating and that it's going proper. So it's a little complicated. The NFL is very complicated. There's a lot of guys on the field, a lot of rules, a lot of players, a lot of teams, a lot. But that's the basis for how the NFL scheduling works. You get paired up against a division, always your division, and then you're also going to make sure that you play enough teams in your conference and the opposing conference. I don't want to get into too much detail about scheduling because it is super complex. Even if your loved one is watching a sports show, you'll have like these super smart data guys who are trying to explain everything because it's so over the head. You got to like let the computers explain it to a certain point. So we'll stop there when it comes to the schedule, but that's just the basis for that. A football game is composed of 2 halves, and those halves are split into quarters. There are 4 quarters. There are 4 quarters in total. Each quarter of football is 15 minutes. You're probably still thinking, okay, 15 minutes times 4, that's 60 minutes. That's 1 hour. Why do football games last so long? Well, that's because in football, it takes a lot of work to transition from one side of the ball to the other. And what I mean when I say that is from offense to defense to special teams. Now, typically a guy who's playing offense is not on defense. Maybe in high school, possibly in college, but definitely not in the pros. You are one position, you typically stay there, and if you are going to play a different position, that's your new position for the season, is how it works. So the offensive guys come out into the field, and when their turn is up, they have to come off, let the defensive guys on the field, or the special teams, which are guys who usually kick the ball. And that takes a lot of time. Plus, sometimes you have injuries, you have penalties when you see a referee throw a flag. Things like that take up a lot of time on the football field, as well as replays. There's a lot of replays in football, and you'll see a lot of them during the playoffs. Now, the game is always going to start with the referee who pulls out a coin, and the winner of the coin toss is going to decide if they're the ones that are going to kick the ball to start the game or if they're going to receive the ball because the other team is going to kick. That is how all football games begin. So on the football field, at any given time, there are 22 players on the field. That's on offense and on defense. If there's more people on the field than they're supposed to, the referee will throw the flag, and there will be some penalties that are given out. But typically, you should only see 22 players on the field at one time. You'll also see 7 referees. 7 referees. It's a lot different than basketball where you may see 3 or 4. But in football, you need 7 because the field is so big. If you've ever seen a football, you see all those hash marks on the field. We'll talk about that in a minute, but those referees are going to be standing at different positions on the field to be watching for different things. I mean, it's 22 men. It's hard to kind of have 1 or 2 people watching everything. And sometimes you'll see the referee throw a flag and your loved one, your boyfriend, your homegirl already knows what the penalty is. How did they see that? Certain referees are assigned certain jobs depending where they are at on the field. Some guys are watching the line. Other guys are in the backfield. It just depends on what their job is. Now, make sure if you have any questions or this is still confusing that you drop it down in the comments and I'll be sure to answer it so that we can make sure that you understand what's going on here. Now, the game of football, it is played in downs. So you'll see 1st and 10, 1st down and 10, 2nd down, 3rd down. What does that mean? Let's get back to these hash marks on a football field. So these hash marks work as a ruler. And when the players come onto the field, the quarterback comes on for his first throw. That is going to be 1st down and 10 yards. He has 4 opportunities or downs to advance that ball 10 yards. So if he starts on the 20-yard line, he's got 4 opportunities to advance it to the 30-yard line. Now, if he doesn't do it in those 4 opportunities, they've got to kick the ball and give it back to the other team. But ideally, he gets it done a couple times. It may take him a few drives to get it all the way to the end zone in a position to score a touchdown. But that's why the quarterbacks make the big bucks. They're typically one of the highest paid players on the team, and that's because they're the leaders of the field. You win and die by how your quarterback does typically, and also a few other key players. But the quarterback's job is to get as many 1st downs as possible so they can score. Now, how do you get a 1st down? Well, the quarterback can throw the ball, and the receiver can catch it, and let's say he gets 5 yards. Now it's 2nd down, and because they gained 5 yards, it's 10 yards minus 5 yards. They still have 5 more to go. So it would be 2nd down and 5 or 2nd and 5. There's another way he can do it. He can pass the ball off to a runner who's going to run with the ball. You have 2 different kinds of people. You've got the one that is going to catch it or one that's going to run it. We call it air or ground. And we'll get into those positions as well, the difference between a receiver and a back. But mostly the quarterback's job is to get it to one of those 2 players. And sometimes he's going to be tricky. Sometimes he's going to fake like he's going to throw it and then hands it off to a running back. Or he pretends that he handed it to a running back and the whole time he's holding it and now the quarterback is running. So you see a lot of fun and interesting things. And each quarterback has a different style of play. For example, the Los Angeles Rams have a quarterback named Matthew Stafford, and he has what's called a cannon. He can throw that ball down the field, and then you have other quarterbacks in the league that do a really good job once they get the opportunity to run in the open field. Lamar Jackson is a great example of that. He plays for the Baltimore Ravens, who look amazing this year. All right, so we talked a little bit about the quarterback, that he is the number one on offense. He is so important. And then you have the wide receivers, or just the receivers. They catch the ball, and then the people who are going to be have the ball handed to them and they just run. Those are going to be your backs. Those are the three key figures that I want you to remember when it comes to the offense. They're super important, but the unsung heroes of the offense is going to be the offensive line. Those are the big guys. Big guys typically wear big numbers, something for you to remember. But those big guys are on the line, and their entire job is to make sure that the quarterback is protected and he has enough time to execute the plan. So if he needs to, take that ball and throw it to a receiver down the field, those people on the line have to do their job and make sure that they give him enough time to complete that. Or they need to block and open up a hole so the running back can run through it as fast as he can and get as many yards as he can for the first down. So that's the basic of the offense. We can get deeper into it as time goes on, but I don't want to complicate it too much. Just know you have the wide receivers, the quarterback, the running backs, and the offensive line. Now, transitioning in between each plays is also critical in the NFL. As soon as one play is complete, you have 40 seconds to get the next play off. Just 40 seconds to get the ball, set up the offense. The quarterback has to tell the team what play they're about to run. They have to get it all set up and snapped. And if they don't do that in that 40 seconds, they get a penalty and they have to redo it again. Now, typically, you'll see a lot of quarterbacks, they're very smart with time management. If they see that play clock ticking down to the last 5, 3, 1 second, they're going to call a timeout to prevent any penalties from occurring. But the game clock is also meant to help speed up the game of football. So you have 40 seconds in between the last play and to get the new play off. So time management is always crucial in football. Defense. All right, these are the people who are basically doing everything they possibly can to prevent you from scoring any points in this football game. They're trying to get to the quarterback to stop him from throwing the ball, which is called a sack if they do hit him while he has the ball. And they're going to try to hit your receivers and running backs and stop them. That's the whole role of the defense, is to hit and to stop. So you have the defensive line. Now they're the ones that are trying to break through the offensive line and get to the QB. Defensive line is also very big and strong guys. And in fact, in order to be an NFL lineman, you have to be of a certain height and a certain weight before you're even considered. That's the rules. So after you have the first line of defense, which would be the defensive line, you have the backs. They're going to try to eat up any running back that comes through, any wide receiver. They're going to help their linemen. They're the next line of defense, and they're usually really intelligent because they have to problem solve very quickly. And then your final line of defense is going to be the guys in the backfield. They are super fast and speedy, and if everything else fails in those first two lines of defense, they're there to stop anything that happens. Darius Slay of the Philadelphia Eagles is a really good safety, and he does an incredible job of stopping the play and picking off the play or getting an interception, which means he catches the ball that was intended for the offense. And as a defensive player, when you catch the ball, that's a very good thing. And sometimes they run it in for a touchdown. It's called a pick six. All right, the last side of the ball would be special teams. Now, I did say typically you're not going to see a player playing offense and defense, but you will see players play offense and special teams, or defense and special teams. And that's because special teams is only there for certain things like punt return and kickoff return. Now, a punter and a kicker might seem like they're the same things, but the kicker is always going to kick the ball on the ground. There's another guy holding the ball, and it is in a set position, and he kicks it, and that's usually for a field goal or for a free point after a touchdown. A punt, you're going to see the punter take the ball, drop it, and he's going to kick it out of the air down the field. So those are the difference between a kick and a punt in football. Kicks are usually used to score, and punts are usually used because you didn't convert from those 4 downs, and now you have to give the ball back to the other team, and you want them as far away from their end zone as possible, so you punt it to try to make them come all the way back down the field, at least 80 yards. So how do you score in football? We all know what a touchdown is. A touchdown is 6 points. That's when the quarterback throws the ball or hands the ball to somebody and they run it into the end zone. Now, after you score a touchdown, because that's the biggest and highest way to score, you get a bonus. You can either kick a really close field goal for 1 point, or you can score another touchdown, but it's only going to be worth 2 points. Now, typically, people are going to go for the 1 point because it's a free point. Kickers generally do not miss that free kick after the touchdown. It does happen, but it's a rarity. But in some cases, you might need the 2 to tie the game or to maybe get up by 1 point. So you'll have a 2-point conversion, which is basically go out and score another touchdown back to back. So those are the main ways to score. Another way to score is through a field goal. That's where you bring out the kicker to come and kick because you didn't get close enough to score a touchdown. And those are only worth 3, but they're very valuable. And last but not least, we have a safety, and that is where the defense either tackles the ball or somehow ends up with the ball in the other end zone, and they get 2 points for that. You don't want to see those happen unless it's the team that you're rooting for, but safeties are pretty much a defensive flex. Thank you for rocking with me this far. I know it's a lot of information, but we're really close to the end, and we're about to go a little deeper, so stay with me. Let's talk about some terms that you need to know when watching these football games. Okay, the line of scrimmage. You're going to hear that a lot in football. The line of scrimmage is where the ball begins to play. So if it's on the 20-yard line, the line of scrimmage is there. That is where all of the players will line up for the play to start. So at the beginning of every play, there must be 7 offensive players on the line of scrimmage. If that doesn't happen, you'll see flags go in the air, or if there's too many, you'll see flags go in the air. So the line of scrimmage is something that you're going to need to know for the game. And on TV, it's usually a black line on the field. And spoiler alert, if you go to football games in real life, those lines are not actually on the field. It's just digital TV that's added to kind of make the viewers at home see where the line of scrimmage is, and then that yellow line is the line they need to cross or get to for the first down. Defense. Those are the people who are not throwing the ball. Defense is trying to stop the people from throwing the ball. The people who are throwing the ball, that would be offense. The end zone. Now, this is typically the place where you see all of the paint and the decorations and, whatever the team name or whatever city they're in, that is the end zone. That is where you score the touchdowns. That's also where you score the 2-point conversions. And if the defense is able to tackle somebody in their own end zone, that's where you get the safeties from too. First down. A first down is awarded when a team successfully advances the ball at least 10 yards within the 4 attempts that they're given. Now, if a player or a team gets that first down in the first attempt, it's another first down and then another first down. But if they don't get the first down, again, we have to give the ball back to the other team. And ideally, you want it to get far away as possible. A fumble. Now, we use this word in common language, I would say, but a fumble is just simply where you drop the ball. Now, fumbles can also be a little bit more sinister. Sometimes a player will just rip the ball out of your hands. That's also considered a fumble. It's also a lot more embarrassing. But typically a fumble is where you drop the ball. And it's not a dropped pass. A fumble is you had the ball, you were running, and you dropped it. And then the other team has the opportunity to pick it up. And then it's a turnover. And those aren't fun. An interception. Let's say your favorite quarterback, he went out, he threw the ball, the receiver looks like he's going to catch it, and then boop, somebody from the other team actually does. That is called an interception. You don't want to see a lot of those happening. You don't want to see a lot of those happening unless it's not your favorite team. Punt. Again, this is where they drop the ball and they kick it. The kick is going to be steady. It's on the ground. It's controlled. A punt, it's up to the punter to make sure he drops the ball well enough so that he can kick it. Red zone. The red zone means you're within 20 yards of scoring, within 20 yards of the end zone. When your team is in the red zone, that's a good thing because even if they don't get close enough to getting a touchdown, they're close enough to get a field goal and get those 3 points. So the red zone is a very important time to pay attention to what your team is doing. A sack. Now, when you see these happen in football, you typically see a lot of celebration, and that's because if you see a sack happen, that means that the defense got to the quarterback before he was able to throw the ball, and now he's laying on the ground with a football in his hand. And typically you'll see the big guy who did it dance around a little bit and celebrate with his homies because sacks are not easy to get. You have to work really, really hard. Timeout. You'll hear that and all the clocks will pause. That's when a team requests a quick meeting with all of the players and the coaches to discuss what's happening on the field, or maybe they just needed to save that game clock that was expiring. But a timeout is just a pause in the game. Uprights. The uprights are those yellow things on the field that you kick the ball through whenever you're going to kick a field goal or that free point after the touchdown. Those are the uprights. And you'll see, or you'll hear the commentator say, and up right through the uprights, and that means that he made the field goal. Or, he shanked it left to the uprights. That means that, he missed it and it went to the left of the field goal, big yellow thing that looks like that. Turnover. This is where the other team gets the ball back because the offense messed up. It can be one way via an interception, meaning the other team catches the ball. It could be another way as a fumble, meaning whoever had the ball in their hands dropped it. Or it can be a turnover on downs. And what that means is that the quarterback was unable to advance the ball the 10 yards within those four downs. And that's when you see special teams come out onto the field and they're going to punt the ball away, or the quarterback fudged up for real, and on 4th down they went for it. He messed up, and now the other team gets to come out onto the field. No special teams to push the ball back. Now we're in a sticky situation. So those are how turnovers work. A pick six. A pick is an interception. That is the nickname for an interception, is a pick. A pick six is where they intercept the ball and run it all the way down the field and get a touchdown. Pick six are amazing. It's one of the things that defense loves to celebrate. You usually see some cool dances that they've concocted in the event that they get a pick six. Fair catch. What is a fair catch? So remember special teams, I told you they come out with a punter. They punt the ball down the field to the other team. Well, there's going to be a guy that's standing there to catch the ball, and he has to decide, am I going to catch this ball and run, or am I going to catch this ball and just be happy where I'm standing? If he decides he's going to catch the ball and just be happy where he's standing because the defense is right there ready to pummel him, he's going to wave his arm to let the ref know that this is a fair catch and there is going to be no running so that we keep him safe. Another common term you will hear in football is the word snap. Now, on the offensive line, you have the guy that's in the middle. He is the center. His job is to snap the ball back to the quarterback so that he can get the play going. There's another player on the field whose responsibility is to snap the ball, and this is the long snapper. and they're going to snap it back to the punter all the time. That's literally their only job. It's one of the safest jobs on the field, but you cannot mess up. So the center and the long snapper are responsible for snapping the ball, the center on offense, and the long snapper on special teams. Now, before we wrap this all up, let's talk about some common penalties that you'll see in a football game. Now, before the ball is ever snapped by the center, everybody is going to be on that line of scrimmage, and they have to be still. If somebody moves before that ball is snapped, you're going to hear whistles, you're going to see flags go in the air before the play even starts, and you're probably thinking, what the heck even happened? Most likely what happened is somebody either on offense or defense moved, and that's going to be called a false start or offsides penalty. Another common flag that you might see is pass interference, and that's when you see a receiver who's trying to get open to get the ball, and he's got defense all in his face, grabbing his jersey, doing too much, and that's called a pass interference. You can definitely play defense, but you can't get too involved because then it messes up the player's opportunity to ever catch the ball, and that's kind of cheating. So that's a pass interference flag. Now, beyond pass interference, if you decide to hold somebody's arms and prevent them from being able to execute their job, they're going to call holding on that as well. It's usually it's usually called on a player that's on the line more so than it is on a receiver, but holding is also a very common call. You might see a delay of game flag thrown as well, and that's when that 40-second game clock runs to 0 and it's a delay of game. You don't really see many of those in the playoffs, but they happen. Let's talk about the delay of game penalty. The quarterback has 40 seconds from the time that the last play ended to get the new play off. If he doesn't do it in time, he's going to call timeout to prevent any penalty from being called. But if he doesn't see it, he either time management or he messed up, he's going to get a delay of game penalty called on him. Another common penalty you'll see is roughing the passer. Now, quarterbacks are very important to offense, and sometimes you'll have guys that are out there really trying to hurt people. And so roughing the passer is a penalty that came into the game. Actually, it's not very old, and that's just to make sure that we're playing fair and we're not out there getting grimy. So roughing the passer is because there's protected positions on the field, and the quarterback is one of them. The kicker is also one of them as well. I think there's nothing sadder than seeing a kicker get tackled. It breaks my heart. They're never ready for it. But kickers and quarterbacks are typically protected on the field. And if you still don't care about this flag that's about to be called and you decide you want to go lay out a quarterback, now you got to deal with his offensive line. They're coming for you. So you've stuck with me this far. That ends Football 101. Next, we're going to get into more episodes, more learning. Now it's time to learn about the playoffs. Don't forget to subscribe to Ladies Love the NFL and also to my newsletter. There might be a dope PDF with all of this information for you to access while you're watching the game. And don't forget to come back for the next episode so that by Super Bowl, you're kind of an expert too. It's been beautiful being here with you. I'm your host, Tammy, a.k.a. the Candy Cutie. And until next time, boom.